when you see it on the TV at the moment, the interest rates of some of these payday loans are just astronomical. This isn't money you're giving them. This is money they've already earned. We're going to be looking to see what kind of feedback we get from the employees. We can see obviously the stats of how many people are brought into it, but it'd be nice to see what their views and feelings are, making that positive impact. And we're happy to be supporting our employees with their financial wellbeing, especially due to the cost of living crisis.
Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JGA Recruitment Group, and we are specialist payroll recruiters operating in the UK, EMEA and the US. Now, of course, if you are a regular listener to this show, please do remember to subscribe to it. Please do review it if you get a moment. But most importantly, please do share it with all of your payroll colleagues and friends, because together we want to raise the profile of global payroll, and we can do that with your help. Now, today, I'm really, really excited because we've got an absolute industry thought leader on the show today. We are joined today by Dianne Hoodless, who is very well known within the payroll industry, certainly here in the UK. She's currently head of group payroll compensation and reward for TFG Brands, who own many brands I'm sure many of you listeners will be familiar with. These include Hobbs, Whistles, Phase 8 and others, to name just a few. But she's more than just the head of group compensation and reward. She's also a member of the board of the directors at the Chartered Institute of Payroll Professionals, also known as the CIPP. And it's an organisation that she's been part of in one capacity or another for over 20 years, where she's been training and advising on the next generation of payroll professionals and supporting the industry to be the best it can possibly be. But I can't even stop there, because Dianne is also extremely well versed in software implementation. In fact, she's led implementations of both Workday and ResourceLink, and she's managed huge, large-scale, multi-sited payroll operations as well. In fact, she's so well respected in the payroll industry that in 2018, she was awarded individual chartered status, and in 2020, she was named CIPP Payroll Manager of the Year. She's also a Reward Strategy 300 member like myself. And it's, well, amazing to have you on the show, Dianne. It's been a long time coming. How are you feeling today?
I'm very well, Nick. Yourself?
I'm very good indeed. I'm excited to have you here. We've been trying to get this arranged for a while, and here we are. And we're together. So I'm going to ask you a question which might sound easy on the surface, probably a little bit deeper than it needs to be. And we're going to go into, what does the word payroll mean to you?
Oh, payroll. It isn't an easy question, because payroll is such a big and complex area. But me personally, it means passion and dedication, because you have to be passionate about what you do and be dedicated to deliver the outcomes that you want to achieve. So making those payments on time, correctly conforming to the legislation, which I normally say to my students is a bit like the payroll guide law, if any of those are into Girl Guides and Scouts, for example, because we are very passionate about what we do in payroll. So that's what payroll means to me. It means to me about being passion. I have also been said in the past that, to me as an individual, I'm a bit like a stick of rock. If you were to break me open, you'd find payroll running all the way through me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty correct as well, because I've turned a job into my profession, and that's what I love about payroll. It is my profession.
And your profession, by the sounds of things, has also become your passion. So what a great place to start. And I love that rock analogy. I think there's a really good hashtag out there, Passion for Payroll, which I think Max van der Klisper started. He's been a guest on this show in the past. And he speaks as passionately as you do about the profession. And I'm excited to get into that today. But let's take our listeners back then before we jump into the nitty-gritty today. I've obviously given a bit of an insight into your background in the introduction, but it'd be wonderful to understand a little bit more about what drives you in payroll, some of the journeys you've been on in your career during your payroll journey that's led you to being on the show with me today.
Okay, so we need to go back 36 years. So yes, that's how long I've been in payroll. So how did I actually fall into payroll? Well, did I actually fall, or did I know that was something that I wanted to do? Well, how the story starts is that I was working for Rover Group, as it was back then, and I'm mere YTS, so that Youth Opportunity Training Scheme, not knowing much what I wanted to do in life, mere 17-year-old. What I was actually doing at the time, and yes, you have to really cast your mind back and put a visual in your thought mind here. I was sitting at a telephonist exchange board, plugging in plugs and with a little headset saying, "A Rover Group, can I help you?" or "Number please," when I was dialing external. And I thought, this isn't for me. I do not want to be sitting in a telephone exchange for the rest of my life, plugging in boards within Rover Group. So a role came up in finance. And I went down there and I thought, well, I like finance. I like numbers and things. I was good at maths at school. I never actually got that role, but they did ask me that question, do you like maths? And the answer to that was yes. And the rest is history. That was how I started in payroll, because I liked maths. And they had an opportunity for me at Rover Group to become a payroll assistant. Which was such a exciting opportunity, that going from a mere YTS at 17 to having actual proper money and working in payroll, then I had that sort of bug. I got the payroll bug. And that's where I stayed. I stayed with the Rover Group, who have ended up with various names and owners after that, for 31 years. But then I got to a certain age. They say a woman at a certain stage. Well, I got to a woman at a certain age because I decided that if I didn't leave Rover when I chose to, I would be there to retirement. And I thought, I've got a lot more to offer than just sitting here doing this for the next 5, 10, 15 years, depending on when I retire. So I started to look around, and that's when I ended up going to Howden Insurance Brokers, completely, totally different from manufacturing. I cannot tell you how different looking after insurance brokers are compared to looking after people who are manufacturing. So I stayed there between 4 to nearly 5 years, and I thought I need to go back to roots, but I don't particularly want to go to manufacturing. So I ended up for retail, which is pretty similar to manufacturing. And I'm very happy here and have been here for nearly 2 years. But yes, payroll has always driven me. It's driven me to the person that I want to be. I am proud of what I've done. I always wanted to achieve some types of qualifications, and payroll has allowed me to do that. As you know, that I've got chartered status, but I've also got a master's degree in business and reward within payroll. So it allowed me to do things that I never thought I could actually ever ever, should I say, do it.
Yeah, what a fantastic story. But also you've immersed yourself in the extracurricular piece as well. You've been part of the CIPP, both as a trainer, I think you've worked as a tutor, you're now a non-exec board member. Now that takes passion, that takes commitment, that takes someone wanting to really, improve the industry. So where does that drive come from? Where do you find the time? And tell us a little bit about that journey and your experience working with the CIPP.
Well, I started as a tutor when I finished my BTEC diploma, as it was then, 20 years ago. And I thought, I want to give back to the profession. I want to bring on other students and teach them the best available, get those skills. And I say to my students now, what we're giving you here within the CIPP is we're giving you tools for your toolbox. You may not use them in your day-to-day job now, but you may use them for your next profession. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back. I got more and more then passionate to see the journey that CIPP was going on, and I wanted to be part of that journey. And what better way to be part of that journey than to get voted on the board of directors by the membership, to have the members out there say, yep, she can lead us across the board and have our views, listened to for the CIPP board. And that's what I hope I do. I do listen to our members, and I do bring their thoughts and feelings to the board. And that's the journey, and that's my passion. It's just making sure I can get the words of payroll out there, not as a backroom function, as a standalone function. That's where I'd like to be. And having sure that, we are alongside, if not, alongside, I'm going to say it, but better than our HR colleagues, but at least equivalent to them, and be seen as that as part of every industry that's out there that can see that there is a place for payroll.
Well, kudos for you. It's hugely commendable. And I'm excited to explore that a little bit further. So let's talk about then how we can really raise the profile of payroll, or continue to raise the profile of payroll, so that our counterparts, as you mentioned there, can stand up and listen. And there's a few things that I know that we can discuss today that will help crystallize why it's so important and why it's shifted so much with some of the things that you've been involved with. Now, obviously, you mentioned there you've now found yourself in retail. I know that retail is an industry that's has been a lot of pay on demand type solutions start to proliferate the retail industry for obvious reasons, and probably manufacturing as well. Doesn't necessarily suit all workers, but real-time pay and everyday early pay is something that we've seen a lot in the world of retail. Is that something you've been involved with? And if so, what kind of providers, what kind of solutions have you seen start to appear in the world of retail payroll? And how can those listening, if they are interested in pay on demand solutions, how can they sort of think about choosing the right one?
So how would I go about choosing the right one? You need to think about, firstly, see what your employees want, because you rightly say there, Nick, that it's not fit for everybody, not fit for all employees. So firstly, see, is it something your employees want? Get that feedback. You get the feedback from your engagement surveys or any sort of other communication that you do with your employees. So make sure it's something that they chomping at the bit to do. There are, as you mentioned as well, there are quite a few providers out there on the market. Do your due diligence. Make sure you go with the right provider for your business. The first thing to ask is, how will they integrate with your current system? We are required to load data to a third party. We all have to think about GDPR on that. Or will it work via a connector, which I know some of the latest software providers do have connectors that can connect to third parties? Or does your own software provide you with that platform, which better still, because you've got the data, your employee data, in real time? And when you're thinking about retail, you have to try and capture that data in real time, because the employees clock in and have flexible hours. They may come and work one day, they may not come and work another. So having that in real time information is really key. Then the next thing I'd need to think about, and which I have done on the journey that when I've looked at these providers, is the admin costs. So there's usually a cost for every transaction your employee makes. Now, I've seen those vary from anything from £2.50 to £1.25. But don't be put off by this, because you might see that actually I prefer this provider, but actually the transaction fee is £2.50, but you can negotiate that. Everything's negotiable. So you can always try and get that down. And also, sorry.
Go on. I'll come back.
Yeah, and also it is actually possible for the employer to pick those transactional costs up, because you'll find that quite a few of these providers will bill you separately for those transactional costs. So you can actually pick that up so your employees don't have to make that pay. Lastly, I would look what other ancillary services they offer too. So to support your financial wellbeing offerings that you have within your organisations. And this may include things like interest-free loans, saving schemes, financial advice, to name but a few. So there's a lot that you can look at when you're going out there to the market to see which best provider fits your organisation.
Fantastic. And actually you answered the question I was going to ask, which is, this is a solution, pay on demand, but it's still relatively in its infancy in the world of payroll, but it does divide opinion. And I think part of that division of opinion comes from whether it should be down to the employee or the employer to foot the bill for these kind of solutions. And you mentioned there that actually both options are available, and that's kind of part of the negotiation process, which is great. Because it is such a binary subject in the world of payroll at the minute, I think I'm correct in thinking it's something you brought into your operation, or something you're managing at the moment, Dan. So you've obviously got an acute awareness of what it can provide, and I think from my 9 pence worth for what it's worth is I think it can really improve the employee experience for those industries where it can really serve the people that work for you. And I think hospitality and retail is one of those. And I think the payroll has moved a lot more into the realm of employee experience and improving that, which makes it more strategic. But from your perspective, if there is someone listening to this that perhaps isn't brought into the idea of pay on demand, perhaps either morally or because of the time or because of the financial, whatever it might be, what would you say to those people? What kind of things perhaps they could look at to try and change their perspective or to raise awareness? And that's probably the first part of the question. The second part of the question is then, how complex is it to manage once the scheme is up and running?
That's quite a long question. So if you're not brought into it at the moment, I can understand why, because there are these sorts of theories that you could be encouraging your employees to get further into debt. Now, a lot of these providers do enable the employer to actually put in can't think of the word now, to put in sort of stop gaps or stops to say your employee can only draw down £50 or £100 per transaction. So that is in the employer's give to give. So you can, as an employer, control that. And if you're really sort of think about what your employees want. So do that communication. Just because you may not feel it's the best thing out there for them, actually ask them. And also, what is their alternative? If they don't draw down on their money, then what's the alternative? Do they go from these payday loans, which are the interest is absolutely astronomical? They are only accessing money that they've earned. So it's not as though you're giving them money that they're not entitled to. It is exactly how, they have earned this finance. And if you supported them with a good financial wellbeing package around that, then you have the data to see who is actually drawing down further than they should be. So I know that there has been a lot of speculation about this, about is it the right or wrong thing to do? But let your employees have that freedom of choice. If you haven't got it in there, what alternative are you giving them?
Yeah, I think that links back to the employee experience piece. How important has financial education been alongside? I know a lot of the providers do provide some financial educational support alongside their solutions. Is that something you've been able to communicate with your employees in doing your solution as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Having a financial wellbeing strategy can go a long way to helping employers feel better about their finances. So employees start to feel better about their finances if you have some kind of strategy in place as an organisation. But not only that, So not only that, but it can also have a positive impact on the employers too. Now, I have some statistics around this. The Financial Wellbeing Index stated that money worries are the biggest cause of stress for the UK employees. They are damaging the business too, often resulting in their staff sickness, the case of financial this makes the case for financial wellbeing at work absolutely compelling. Also, you might find that the 4.2 million of workers' days each year are lost in absences because of lack of financial well-being. That can actually equate to 6.2 million in lost output. And that was some statistics that the Centre of Economics for Business and Research came up with. So you can see that, it is important that we start to think about those employees' well-being and how they are, being dealt with, and what type of financial well-being packages we have in the around for our employees. Also, NABAR in 2018, I know that's going back a while, said that actually nearly 7 in 10 employers believe that staff performance is negatively affected when an employee is under financial pressure. So by having financial well-being in place, by having maybe early pay or a drop down or some other financial sort of support, you could be, helping those pressures on your employees. So by implementing that financial wellbeing solution, such as targeted support and guidance, you can help employees have any short or medium-term financial challenges and pave the way for more secure long-term future. So then going further to this could help ease the stress that can affect employees' mental and physical well-being, and in turn for the employer, reduce absenteeism, boost employee performance, and just maybe improve staff retention.
Yeah, it was a pretty compelling case. I think certainly the talent attraction and retention piece is something we're seeing as recruiters here, right? It definitely has an impact. And if a company offers it and one doesn't, and you're on the fence between two decisions, you're typically going to go with the one that can offer you a flexible pay solution because it gives you more control, it gives you more choice. And we know from the Great Resignation or the Great Awakening, that's what employees are looking for: more choice and more options, really, to manage the way they want to manage their own finances and well-being. Interestingly, some additional statistics that I read recently this week was that I think it was payments.com said that 61% of businesses believe that a real-time payments will provide them with a competitive advantage. So, this is definitely now very much in the mind's eye of businesses looking forward that want to improve their solutions for their employees. And I think Reward Strategy quoted that over 4 million UK workers already have control over their pay with earned wage access solutions. So I highlight that because it was only a couple of years ago when I think the CIPP themselves ran a study, and I think it was overwhelmingly along the lines of, we won't bring this in. But actually, it's not necessarily in the hands of the payroll managers. It's the business to say, our employees need this, so we need to bring it in. But what we do know is that the responsibility then falls on the payroll manager to be supportive of that implementation process. So I'm keen to know from someone who's been through that process, has it been easier to implement now that the HMRC have amended the RTI requirements? And has it been a really complicated thing, or tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so what happened there? The legislation itself stipulated that these advance payments, and that's what they classed that, must be treated as a payment on account of earnings, which subsequently meant that employers must submit extra real-time information. So that report that we have to do when we sort of send the information to HMRC once a month, we have to do it also when we do advance payments, which you can imagine. This is the way that reports and records those payments and sends them off to HMRC. However, salary advances can be paid regularly, meaning that this would create that substantial administration burden and work for the employers, but not only for the employers, but also for HMRC. So having to send that every time we did these drawdown payments, either early pay or drawdown payments, whichever terminology you wish to use, there was going to be that additional report. It could have had also, which people wasn't aware of, that it could have had unintended impacts on any sort of universal credits, because as some people be aware that when paydays move, that can also have an impact on universal credits. And that's why HMRC now stipulate that you have to put on your RTI statement the actual contractual payday, not when the money is going into the bank because of weekends. So this was also having this impact. So to address these issues, HMRC drafted regulations in September 23, amending this secondary legislation so that salary advances no longer needed to be separately reported before the employee's contractual payday. Yippee, we said. The proposed amendments will result in a requirement to only report the contractual salary payment in full and on contractual payday. This means that each payment of salary only needs to be included on the RTI report once. It was a welcome simplification by all parties, or even if you didn't do early pay, for example, because of doing those additional RTI submissions was burdensome. So early pay, as I mentioned, does fall in line with these salaries advances and are an important aspects of how employers can help their employees. So this proposed change in legislation will make it easier for employers to report these payments and reduce that administration burden. And HMRC are always talking about how can they reduce the administration burden for the employers. And this is one of the aspects. So yes, this change has helped.
Well, I think it's refreshing to hear that they've simplified something. I think there's a lot, I would say bring back the simplification of many other aspects, national minimum wage and other aspects I think could be simplified as well. But hey, we've started it, so that's good. At least there's something's been simplified, because the role of the payroll professional is complex and challenging, as we know. You mentioned earlier on as well the ability to keep track of payments that people are drawing down and when. And as someone that's managing this scheme for a very big retail business, thousands and thousands of employees, do you feel it is important that you are able to keep track of what employees are drawing, not just when, but how much? And should that responsibility even sit with payroll? I'd love to get your take.
Well, I think because payroll are very data-driven, then the data will come into payroll, but it's one that we will be sharing with our HR and colleagues. And yes, the data can highlight if any of our employees do have any sort of financial issues, because you'll be able to track trends. You'll be able to see whether they are taking more than you would expect them to. So it's a good insight to be able to put that financial wellbeing package around them. And you can also then put that support in place to help them and point them in the right direction. And it may be even that the provider that you go with also has that help. And I know that one of the providers has links to Samaritans, for example. So there are, you're offering your employees that extra support, that extra layer of support. So if you can see that data, you can support your employees more. But like as I mentioned most of the early pay systems allow you to dictate how much an employee can actually draw down, meaning there are safeguards in place to ensure they still have substantial earnings left on payday to meet their bills, which is really important and does actually worry some people and some employers in the past. But it is in your control, as I mentioned. It is very much in your control to dictate that of how much your employees can draw down. And if they need you to draw down more, then you can have that conversation with them. So what does it mean? This means employers can put in place a solution that actively insists their employees' financial well-being, removing the need to opt for a short-term fix and create that longer-term debt problem. Because when you see it on the TV at the moment, the interest rates of some of these payday loans are just astronomical. And as I mentioned, this isn't money you're giving them. This is money they've already earned. So it is their money in the first place.
Yeah, no, he makes some really good points. I really like the point in relation to the trending of data and how, because I think for me, data is at the heartbeat of what's really enabling payroll to be seen as a more of a strategic entity, right? Because trend analysis doesn't just stop in relation to financial wellness. We can use that to support our financial counterparts, our FDs, and our HR counterparts. The trend analysis can support strategic workforce planning, for example, or we can look at it year over year payroll expenses or headcount trend analysis, absence analysis, overtime analysis, or even gender pay gap analysis. I think there's so much data at payroll's fingertips now. And finally, it's great because we've got FDs and HRDs and C-suites going, payroll, we need this data. Tell us more about how our business is actually operating. What are some of the analysis we can discover in that data that's going to help us run more efficiently, more streamlined, support our employees better? And you've made a really fantastic link between financial wellness and mental health. I mean, that's just one example of where payroll can really make a difference. It's really nice to hear that come through. You've obviously been through the implementation as well, and you've not just implemented the pay on demand type solutions, but also you've implemented systems including Workday, ResourceLink, and others as full software implementations. What would you see as as an implementation success when it comes to pay on demand? And since you've implemented it, I guess two-part question: how many of your workforce have been really engaged in the product?
Engagement is good. They have taken it up, but I think it depends on the industry. So our employees are, weekly paid employees, and they get paid on a monthly cycle. So it's good for them to be able to draw down their money early. The engagement has been really good. So Seth has been able to, for us, he's been able to make that positive impact and helping our employees with their financial well-being. That's what success is look for us. And we're really, really interested to find out what kind of feedback and information we'll get from our engagement survey next year, because obviously this is only the first year that we've put this live. So we're going to be looking to see what kind of feedback we get from the employees. We can see obviously the stats of how many people are brought into it, but it'd be nice to see what their views and feelings are. It is a success for us. Our employees are embracing this. So yeah, it's really been good. It's making that positive impact, and we're happy to be supporting our employees with their financial well-being, especially due to the cost of living crisis. And going back on how payroll can work with the data, well, I think the pandemic just shows you kind of how payroll was good with data and how we kept the UK paid.
Absolutely right. So what about in terms of implementation success? So I've personally had some pay on demand providers on this show. I remember interviewing Peter Griffith at WageStream as one of those providers way back in 2018 along this, and I've had other providers on as well. So for those interested in the supplier side, check out previous episodes. But the providers will always say it's a very, very simple solution to implement. We just almost plug and play. But we know that reality is often sometimes a little bit more complex than that. What have been some of the challenges you've had to overcome, and how complex has it been for those listening that may be considering this kind of solution, but that don't feel like they've got the time to implement? Is it going to be a real time drain for them?
No, it's not. It is pretty simple. Now, there are two main ways, and obviously I've looked across the piece. I've looked at Wage Stream, I've looked at Reward Gateway, I name a few. I can, there are so many out there. So it'll be down to the employer of what their preferences are and the ancillary services they provide. But for the implementation, some of them can be a little bit more difficult than the others, and it's all to do with getting data out of your system. As you can imagine, payroll holds a lot of data, but they also need a lot of data. They need to know about your time and attendance data, especially if you've got retail employees that are clocking, for example. They need to know that in real time, so it's getting that data to them. So it's the transfer of that data. How easy to the provider that you choose is that transfer of data, and then also getting that data back from them to be able to make the relevant payroll deductions. So that's where it can be a little bit sticky. I won't say it's difficult because payroll deal with data all the time. So we can pull data from the system, send it across and pull it back again. So that can be one of the biggest challenges I felt by going with one of the providers. Now, the provider that we went with was Early Pay. And the reason why, one of the main factors in the reason we went was to make my life easier, because payroll managers like their life to be as easy as possible. And this was a solution that was built by our payroll software provider. So they have all the data in real time because it's our payroll and HR system. It's just a little add-on to that. So it's, the employees see it next to their payslip, for example, because it's part of our overall payroll package. But we still did have to do some implementation issues and changes, and that was to do with our calendars, and which obviously payroll people listening will know what I'm talking about. It was to do with our payroll calendars, because as I mentioned previously, we've got our hourly paid employees are paid hourly, weekly, but we pay on a monthly cycle. So our calendars for those pick up 4 or 5 weeks per month, which isn't very good when they're trying to do drawdown of pay, which they've earned weekly for those employees. So it was getting those calendars changed and getting that, and getting line managers to approve their time on a weekly basis. So that was some of the challenges that we had during implementation. But it isn't hard. It really, really isn't hard. And the benefits outweigh that sort of implementation sticky processes that you can have. Certainly not like implementing a new payroll system or even implementing RTI when that came out. It was, or even worse still, furlough. It was far, far simpler. And every single one of the providers that I've spoken to will help you 100% of the way and give you everything that you would need to support the implementation.
Oh, well, that's really, really positive to hear. And hopefully those that are considering it can go forward now with some renewed confidence, knowing you've been through it and it's not that complicated. You mentioned RTI there, Dianne. I'd be interested to know, because, I've been in this industry for 20 years and I've seen it shift incredibly during that time. And I remember, the days of Kalamazoo and the Rutherford Web and those other system providers. We then went into the cloud. We've had auto-enrollment. We've had RTI. We've had furlough more recently. And now we're in a world of data, which data's always been there, but in terms of the utilization of that data and linking that very much to the employee experience, which I think is a really exciting shift. And I don't think we used to talk about payroll and employee experience in quite the same sentence as much as we talk about it these days. And you've very articulately talked about financial wellness and the link there today really, really well. With all those things in mind, are you excited about where payroll is moving and about the future of payroll? And if you are, tell us why.
Excited, absolutely ecstatic is the word. The way that the payroll industry has actually evolved over the 36 years that I've been is incredible. I wrote an article not long ago that if I had a TARDIS, and if I had a TARDIS and I could go back to when I started in payroll and speak to the payroll manager at the time who was locked away in his little office and say, do you know what's coming and what payroll will be like in 30 odd years time? I'm sure he would not have believed me. Well, back then they didn't even know the internet existed. So you can actually imagine. I'm absolutely ecstatic of where it the focus that's on it these days, even just down to the National Payroll Week, we got, recognition from the government which is absolutely brilliant. The pandemic, we were, one of the key workers. Payroll is not what it used to be. People are now choosing to go into work in payroll, not falling into payroll, because they can see the benefits, they can see the progression, they can see what you could become. You could start off as a prevention administrator very early on, then you could be head of like global payrolls, looking after strategic data. It's so much that you can do when you start out in payroll, where your career could finally end up. I would never have thought when I started 36 years ago, plugging data into a green terminal, that I would be head of compensation and rewards here at the Foschini Group, or the TFG Brands London. It's amazing where payroll has taken me, and we're going back to the fact that I've made it my profession because it is my passion.
Yeah, well, look, I love hearing about it. I love seeing your passion come through, and I agree, it's really exciting. I would argue, from my lens as well, of a recruitment lens, actually within payroll, you can progress, I think, quicker than you can in some of those other professions. If you want to come in as a payroll administrator and you want to become a head of payroll for a global organization, those opportunities are available to you if you want to seek them out. And I think that's really exciting. And what I also love is the amount of support that's available in the network, within the community. And you're a real example of that, Dianne, because you have selflessly put yourself forward to tutor others, to help others, to be a non-exec director, and all these things to really support people on their journey. So huge credit to you from that perspective as well. I guess my last question for you for this, and I guess I have my views, I've probably made them clear on this show, if not others, but what else do you think can be done to continue to improve the strategic importance of payroll? Is there anything that we can do as a community to keep driving the profile forward?
Doing podcasts, talking about payroll, keep talking about payroll, telling your businesses, the industries, what data we have, how that can help with their planning. Look at the data we have on absenteeisms, all that type of data. Sometimes they don't realise where the data is held or where it's coming from. So driving that forward, making payroll more prominent. Put anything that you see, anything you feel, read, or anything, shout about it. Shout about how this, as a payroll industry, we've supported National Payroll Week. There's such good stuff out there at the moment that are supporting the profession. So let's all jump and shout about it. As you can see, I'm very passionate about payroll. I have been told I'm a little bit too passionate, but let's shout about it. That is tell them we are strategic. We have that strategic data that can help and support the business and the business's growth.
Yeah, fantastic. By the way, I don't think you can ever be too passionate about anything. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts we have, is to be passionate about something. That's what drives things forward. So don't let anyone tell you you're too passionate. I would like to think I'm really passionate about the industry too. And I don't even work, I don't process payroll, but it's an industry that I've been in ever since I left university. And it's been very, very good to me. And we'd like to give something back as well. So it's been fantastic to hear about your experience with early wage access, for sure. Your experience in the payroll industry, Dianne, the success you've had, and I love to get your view, because you're so well respected and you've seen so many changes, that it's really encouraging, I think, to understand that you believe it's a really exciting future. And hopefully those listening to this will believe that too, because I believe it's true.
Yeah, the changes I've seen in the industry are an absolute amaze. If I think about from, when I started work, a part of my job was to go and collect the post each morning. Now, do you think that's on anybody's job title this day and age in payroll? No. So I could talk all day about the changes in payroll and what I've seen.
You'll have to come back and we'll do another show and we can join forces. I remember calling people when I first started in payroll recruitment 2022, and there would be payroll people in offices with no windows. It was just at the back somewhere, and it was horrendous. So we've come an awful long way since then, which is great. But let's open the payroll vault. We've got 3 short questions for you. I'm going to start with this. One piece of advice you would give to someone working in payroll right now?
Keep going. It's worth it. Don't give up. You'll have your bad days, but you'll have your good days. So keep going.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's the journey, right? That's what it's all about. It's the journey, not the destination.
Absolutely.
You need the highs and the lows. If you had the power of foresight and you could change the entire payroll industry with one action or one improvement, what would that action or improvement be?
Oh, I like that question. If I could change the industry now, I would like to make sure that it was on the tip of everybody's tongue, not back to, as you mentioned, just about it being seen as in offices with no windows, that we are in the thought of everybody, not just when it goes wrong.
Yeah, nice. And hurrah to that. That's the mic drop moment there for people listening. I fully agree. And last but no means least, a little bit of fun for you, Dianne. If payroll was a song or a movie, what song or movie would it be and why?
So if it was a song or a movie, cool. I can't think. So a song or a movie if it was payroll. Now you've asked me. Now I'm thinking about some of the songs that are some of my favourite songs here. I actually can't think. I think actually more about what payroll professionals are, and I think that would have to be Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, because we are like bat out of hell, serving everybody else's problems. So perhaps not the payroll in itself, but actually the people that work in it.
Yeah, no, that works for me. Fantastic. Well, listen, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Payroll Podcast. I'm sorry it hasn't been sooner. I'm sure we can have you back and we can maybe talk next time about how the industry has changed and we can reminisce and look back at a bit of payroll nostalgia. But for now, thank you ever so much for joining me on today's show, talking about earned wage access and how that's helped your employees and that link to financial wellness, which is so important. Of course, if you are interested in linking with Dianne, I will put her LinkedIn profile in the show notes so you can connect directly. And of course, if you are a payroll leader listening to this show and you need support with a payroll related vacancy, well, that's where we can come in. Please do get in touch with either myself or any of my team at jgarecruitment.com. There will be a link in the show notes for that as well, along with my own personal email if you want to get in touch. Just for now, it is me to say one huge final thank you to Dianne for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast. And I look forward to bringing you the next episode real soon. Thank you, Dianne.
Thank you.